In Miraculous Ladybug Season 4, Marinette tells her best friend Alia her identity as the superhero Ladybug. And since then, Alia has been incredibly important. She helped Marinette discover the anti-akumatization charm, she also helped save Marinette from the elevator, and now, at the end of that episode, we know that Marinette is going to tell Alia everything she knows, almost like being an emergency guardian. But since this moment has happened, a lot of people have wondered if Adrien will get the same treatment. Will Adrien reveal his identity as Cat Noir to someone? You guys have heard me tease it in my discussions, and so it's finally time for me to tell you my Adrien reveal theory. Good day, everybody! It is Calxiyn here to discuss this miraculous theory with all of you. If you enjoy this video, remember to subscribe to be notified whenever I post, especially whenever I post Miraculous Ladybug videos. Leave me a comment telling me what you think of the theories. It also helps with engagement, so if you want this video to be seen, if you like the contents of it, you think everyone should see it, I mean, you could also share it, but leaving a comment is nice too. I would like to hear what you think. And thank you to all the patrons and YouTube membership members in Calxiyn's royal court for making videos like this possible. If you want to join them to get some cool rewards while supporting me directly so I can continue making videos like these, the links are in the description. So as I mentioned before, I have teased this theory in a couple of my discussions. I've been working on it basically for weeks, and a lot of people have left me comments if I thought that we were basically gonna get like an Adrien version of Gang of Secrets, but this was back when everybody thought the whole season was gonna be parallel, because we got truth and then we got lies. So people thought, oh, we have Gang of Secrets, we're gonna have that, but like for Adrien. Obviously, we know that the season is not gonna be directly one-to-one like that, like it's not parallel like that now, but I still have a couple ideas about Adrien revealing his identity to someone. So I'm basically gonna show you my 3 different theories about that today. Firstly, we have my Adrien theory, and if you've watched my discussions, you basically probably know what that is. This isn't a Cat Noir reveal, but it's this idea that Adrien feels like he has 3 masks: Cat Noir, true Adrien self, and then the fake Adrien that everybody else wants him to be or perceives him to be. And I created this theory based on episode 11, I think, which was Guilt Trip, where Nino's biggest guilt is that he can't help Adrien stand up to his father. Though this has been an issue before in the series, this line implies to me that something recently has happened with Gabriel and Adrien. And I think that Adrien telling Nino that he feels like he has to wear a mask to be accepted or validated by the people he loves, like his father or Kagami, would really fit in with everything that we've seen so far. In truth, we see that Kagami won't accept the clown side of Adrien. He says, what if when I act like a clown that is really me? And we all know how Gabriel constantly seeks perfection, and he probably wouldn't be too happy about Adrien being a quote-unquote clown either. And I'm thinking that this sort of moment could happen in 2 spots. We do have an episode called Side Comedian, and I think that's just some random dude getting akumatized, like it doesn't really have anything to do with Adrien. But to be fair, like Mr. Pigeon had like this giant like anti-akumatization charm moment, and it didn't really have anything to do with Mr. Pigeon at all. He was just kind of there. And so just because the title has nothing to do with the character doesn't mean that the character won't get a big moment in it, if that makes sense. So maybe like Adrien relates to this somehow. He relates to this, random comedian guy, and then he basically decides to open up to Nino. I don't know. But I think that it's more likely to happen in episode 9, called Gabriel Aggress. And here's why I think specifically episode 9, to fit in with like the chronological nature, I guess, of like all of these episodes. Because you have episode 9, and then you have 11, which is Guilt Trip, where a lot of people think that Adrien's falling for Marinette, and then you have 13, where they're trapped in the elevator. I think that something happens in Gabriel Aggress that basically spurs Adrien to talk to Nino. That Adrien reveal, where he feels really badly about himself, that his father won't accept who he truly is. And then maybe he even brings up Kagami, and it was a problem with Kagami too, and so he wants to kind of be honest with Nino. Nino may bring up, hey, I know that Kagami didn't accept you, but you know who would? Marinette. Because we do see that, first of all, it seems like that Adrien starts to have like some kind of feelings in episode 11, so chronologically it would make sense. But then in episode 13, we kind of see Nino playing wingman, and he's kind of helped Alia before to get Marinette and Adrien together, but it's a bit unclear whether or not he's just helping Alia on Marinette's behalf, or whether Nino is actually playing wingman for Adrien. And Adrien does text Nino about being trapped in the elevator with Marinette, so it's possible that this line of events basically could have happened because Nino was like, hey, you know who will accept you? Marinette. Marinette, and now Adrien is basically trying to pursue Marinette, and Nino is helping on both sides. Other reason why I picked Gabriel Agreste for this to happen instead of Side Comedian is because it comes after the events of Soul Crusher and Queen Bee, and I think that this is going to be very important because Adrien, as Cat Noir, sees Marinette openly tell Zoe that she will accept her for who she is. She doesn't need to pretend to be someone she's not. She doesn't need to put on a mask. They will accept Zoe for who she truly is. Remember, she yells at Cat Noir and she's like, "I'm not finished, okay? Let me finish." So he sees this of Marinette. And so I feel like that maybe he could have seen that, thinks about what Nino says, and is like, yeah, like Marinette is a bit more accepting of people than maybe Kagami, and he would actively pursue her. And I think that it would be kind of perfect, like we got Kagami's rejection of Adrian's true self in Lies, the umbrella closing over Adrien and Marinette in Mr. Pigeon, Marinette encouraging Zoe to be her true self in Soul Crusher, and then in Gabriel Agreste, if something bad happens because of Gabriel, we could have that scene where Adrien basically talks to Nino, Nino points him in the direction of Marinette, and that explains the other episodes that we had gotten out of order, like Guilt Trip. Nino could also just tell him straight up that Marinette has a crush on him. I don't know if that would be I don't know what the equivalent of bro code is when it's like Alia told Nino that Marinette has a crush on Adrien, but like I don't know if that would be like up to code if Nino would just like tell Marinette's secret like that. But at the same time, like nobody has really directly confronted Adrien. It's kind of been vague, so maybe somebody just needed to tell him straight up that Marinette has a crush on him. I don't know. But again, that would explain why in those later episodes, it seems like that Adrien is maybe making more of an effort to like be around Marinette. Nino could be playing wingman, and Adrien could be like actually interested. And this would also explain why Adrien has a very Cat Noir moment in Guilt Trip. Like, remember that scene where he's like, "Yeah, Chloe, when you say it, it's never a joke," and he has this sort of like Cat Noir like smirk and eyebrow. Like, that's him being more of himself. That's him being the quote-unquote class clown, if you want to call it that. And so I think that that's really interesting because that happens in 11, so it would make sense if Gabriel Agreste is 9 for that sort of change to happen in there somewhere. Because usually Adrian's not really like that, and so I feel like that basically fits in with the timeline. So that is my whole Adrien reveal. That Adrien will basically talk to someone about how he feels like that he has to be like perfect or fake all the time, and then he'll finally be told that he can let down his guard, probably by Nino. So again, not a Cat Noir reveal, but I call that the Adrien theory, just because it's almost like there's two Adrians versus his civilian identity and his superhero identity being the conflict. It's like civilian and then like true civilian. Or you could even say it's spotlight civilian because Adrian's a model, he's in the spotlight, and then it's just like wanting to be a regular kid Adrien. So now that we have that one out of the way, I actually do have one where he will tell someone he's Cat Noir, and I call this my passive reveal theory. And this idea is basically about a passive reveal to a character, or unintentional reveal that Adrien is Cat Noir, specifically to Nino. We have to keep in mind that the reason why Marinette revealed her identity to Alia was because she was basically having a mental breakdown. She was crushed under the weight of this burnout and stress and responsibility. We have to keep in mind that Adrien does not feel that way towards being Cat Noir, and in fact, I would say that Adrien loves being Cat Noir so much because of the freedom it gives him, and he values that more than anything else. You have to think of it this way. Adrien is in a cage in real life, but he is free as Cat Noir. But with Ladybug, it's basically the reverse, where the superhero identity was causing Marinette the burden. Adrien's superhero identity lifts a weight off of his shoulders, whereas Marinette's super identity puts a burden on hers. I don't think that Adrien would really risk anyone knowing his identity because he wouldn't be able to be Ladybug's partner anymore, or possibly even not Cat Noir anymore, so it doesn't really make sense for him to tell anyone. That's really the difference between Marinette and Adrien, is that there's really no reason for Adrien to tell someone he's Cat Noir because he's not in the same mental position as her. Ladybug and her secrets get in the way of being with Adrien, but regular Marinette could always be with Adrien regardless of what's going on with Ladybug. But that's not really true for Cat Noir. Noir. The only way for Adrien to be with Ladybug is for him to be Cat Noir. He can't be with Ladybug in his civilian form like Marinette can be with Adrien in hers. And so there's just a fundamental difference that is the only access point that Adrien has to Ladybug is Cat Noir, so he cannot possibly lose that. Whereas if Marinette lost her superhero identity, that doesn't really affect her relationship with Adrien in the same way. So why am I saying all this? It sounds like that I'm saying that it's not gonna happen, so why did I make a second theory? I think that this season will be about Marinette struggling with her role as Ladybug, whereas the problems that Adrien faced will actually have to do with his role as Adrien. Adrien won't reveal his identity as Cat Noir because that's not really the problem. Cat Noir doesn't cause problems for Adrien. Adrien is the problem that Adrien faces, or at least the Adrien everybody wants him to be, like I mentioned before with the Adrien reveal. But with Adrien, it could be his own dad, which is what Gabriel Agreste is about. I think that whether it's the passive or the Adrien reveal, like, this is going to come true. Like, this is going to be the theme of the season regardless. There's going to be an issue that pushes Adrien to tell Nino something. And if Adrien and Marinette are kind of like the other sides of each other's stories, I could see the reveal happening in the reverse. So all of that being said, what is the passive reveal theory? What if Cat Noir tells someone his identity as Adrien? It's like how Marinette broke up with Luca, but then Adrien was broken up with. It's the reverse. If Marinette told Alia in their civilian forms, it only makes sense if we're doing this whole reverse thing that Cat Noir tells Carapace in their superhero forms, but in a passive way. It's kind of unclear whether or not Adrien knows that Nino is Carapace, but picture this. Cat Noir and Carapace are having a bro talk, and Cat Noir is saying stuff like he wishes he could be Cat Noir all the time, that he feels like the masks he wears isn't as a superhero, but it's in real life. He talks about his father and how sad his situation makes him, but like vaguely, okay? Now we could do one of two things. Cat Noir never says it, that's why it's called a passive reveal, but Nino figures it out. Like, how many other kids in Paris are having the same problems his best friend Adrien does, right? And so I feel like that, you know, Nino can figure it out, but he keeps it to himself. He doesn't tell Cat Noir, he knows that it's Adrien, he conceals it, and he just resolves to help Adrien in real life with this new knowledge. He's not gonna bring it up. So basically, Nino knows that Cat Noir is Adrien, but Cat Noir doesn't know that Nino knows that he's Adrien. This is another contrast to Marinette and Alia. Marinette told Alia directly that she is Ladybug, whereas Cat Noir could tell Nino indirectly. Now, if we really want to do a parallel, we could say I'm Adrien Agreste, right? Which could parallel like what Marinette said, saying that she's Ladybug to Alia, but I just don't feel like, that's a little too like on the nose, if that makes sense. Like, we could have Cat Noir tell Carapace like, I'm Adrien Agreste in his superhero form, and that reveal could kind of explain the line in Guilt Trip about Nino wanting to help Adrien stand up to his father. Like, Nino would have gotten that information from Cat Noir, and he would be consumed with guilt, not being able to help him, or even know that his best friend was feeling this way all the time, and was also, you know, using his superhero form to, like, escape his tragic life, I guess you could say. Now, there are some problems with this, and I'll get to that in a second. Now, some points in favor of telling Nino wouldn't just be the complex situation it would create between him and Adrien, but also Nino and Alia. Whereas Alia would not tell a single soul, I feel like if Nino found out indirectly that Cat Noir is Adrien, he would at least try, like he would make an attempt to talk to Alia about it, but Alia would basically like freak out and be like, Nino, you cannot tell me because I know Ladybug's identity. Like, we cannot tell each other or we'll be like the most dangerous people in all of Paris for Hawkmoth to akumatize. And so it's basically left there that Nino attempts to tell Alia, but Alia shuts it down, and then they have to resolve to keep this secret from each other. So here's the problem though with this happening in the Gabriel Agreste episode. Like, this specifically would kind of need to be something that happens after episode 13, since we do see how Alia's like hiding her new role as Ladybug's right hand to Nino, and so I would kind of imagine that this happens in a future episode where Nino goes to Alia, and then Alia finally has to spill about her role with Ladybug knowing her identity, so you can't tell me, Nino, because that would be bad. But in Otagami, there's no indication that Nino knows that Adrien is Cat Noir, because he doesn't have a reaction to Adrien being stuck in the elevator or anything. And that could just be Nino's personality, but like that kind of just didn't make any sense. So that would mean that the passive reveal theory would have to happen later in the season, not in Gabriel Aggress. And I also think that maybe with Senti Nino, Alia may actually tell Nino about her new role. Like, I feel like she'll be like, hey, no more secrets between us, okay? Now that you're in danger, now that I have actively put you in danger, right, by being Ladybug's right hand, I guess I should tell you that I am her right hand, I know her identity, that's why Hawkmoth is targeting you. So sorry. You know, like, I actually do kind of want to make a theory about that, but I just don't have that many ideas yet. Like, I'm kind of thinking something may happen where she's like, Nino, I understand if you don't want to be with me anymore because I'm causing you problems, and then Nino gives her a hug. But then Nino's like, no, like, you know, we'll figure this out together, like, I'll stand by you, we're both gonna stand up against Hawkmoth together, you know, like, something like that. I do like the idea of a passive identity reveal, but I feel like it would have to be in the middle of the season at this point because it doesn't really make sense to be put in the same timeline as the Adrien reveal. Like, the Adrien reveal makes total sense with the timeline, but the passive reveal couldn't happen before Atagami, I feel. But Adrien telling Nino that he's Cat Noir is not the only option, and in fact, I would say that Adrien telling Nino that he's Cat Noir is probably wrong, like, at this point with everything that I said. Instead, I feel like that we will have the Adrien reveal with Nino for sure, and then an actual Cat Noir identity reveal at the end of the season. See, the Adrien reveal allows for Adrien to start pursuing Marinette. It's implied in Mr. Pigeon that the closed umbrella means that Adrien will actually start to return Marinette's feelings because when it originally happened with the umbrella, it was just Marinette that was closed under it. So here's what I believe. I think that the Adrien theory is right, but I also think this season started with a reveal, and as it started with one, it shall end with one. Adrien will tell Marinette that he's Cat Noir. He doesn't want to make the same mistake he made with Kagami, having to lie to her all the time, and so he makes a love confession to Marinette, which is everything that she's ever dreamed of. Then he says, but I need to tell you something important because I can't start our relationship off with lies, not again. Kagami broke up with me because I hurt her with my lies, and I can't hurt you, Marinette. Obviously, Adrien does not talk like this, but you guys understand what I mean. I think that, like, Adrien will cup her face or some other, like, cheesy romantic gesture, okay? She's blushing. Like, we kind of know where it may be going as the audience, but, like, we think that this is so sweet, so romantic, the love confession of the century, but then we get this, like, I can't hurt you, Marinette, so I need to tell you that I'm Cat Noir, and that's it. That's the end of season 4. Like, that is the cliffhanger. We know that he's willing to tell her in the elevator because he knows that Marinette is a supportive, trustworthy person. I could see Adrien thinking that Marinette is basically a low-risk choice to tell. Basically like how Marinette chose Alia because Alia was also quote-unquote low-risk in a sense. Marinette can't be Multi-Mouse again because Cat Noir knows her identity. She's never gotten akumatized, and even if Marinette did get akumatized, the thing is that Cat Noir doesn't know that Marinette is Ladybug, and so by telling Marinette, he doesn't know that she has just basically been given like 2 pieces to the identity puzzle. Obviously, Marinette knows she's Ladybug. By telling Marinette, she would also know who Cat Noir is, and so she would be the first person, other than Master Fu, I guess, to know both identities. You know what I mean? And so in Cat Noir's mind, there's not really a big deal in telling Marinette because it's like, well, even if Marinette did get akumatized, like, you know, Hawkmoth would only know my identity, he wouldn't know Ladybug's identity, and she's the most important one of all. And then Ladybug's just like, why did you do this? The reason why Ladybug and Cat Noir can't tell each other is because if one of them is akumatized, Hawkmoth will have both of their identities. Even if Alia is akumatized at this point, she still won't have Cat Noir's identity to tell Hawkmoth. And I feel like that this could basically be Adrien's reasoning for why it's okay to tell Marinette for all of those reasons. Ladybug's identity will still be safe, obviously. So yeah, we know that's not exactly the case, but that would be his thought process. He tells Marinette that he's Cat Noir, and we see Marinette's shocked expression as we see like the final season end card thing, and that means season 5 will be about the drama, like half of the identity reveal happening, which brings a whole new kind of drama. But I have had that theory in the past that we would get one half of the identity reveal, and I've always theorized that it would be Adrien's first, then we would get the other half of the identity reveal and dealing with the fallout of that, whereas the last season of the show would both of them be knowing each other's identities and, like, you know, everything's cool and okay and they're fighting off Hawkmoth and stuff. Right? Like, I kind of like the last season of Kim Possible when like Kim and Ron are dating. It would kind of be like that. Like for the final season, the love square would kind of be no more. Everyone would know who everyone is, that kind of thing. So season 5 comes around and Marinette would know that Adrien is Cat Noir, but he wouldn't know that she's Ladybug, so maybe she would try to justify it to herself that it'll all be fine. After all, Master Fu knew both of their identities, and so it'll be okay. And Adrien would be in a relationship with Marinette, but now Ladybug would have to keep her feelings for Cat Noir under control, despite knowing that Cat Noir is Adrien when they're together being superheroes. Like, imagine a situation where Ladybug starts flirting with Cat Noir and Adrien's conflicted because now it seems like Ladybug, the love of his life, likes him, but now he's with Marinette. He doesn't want to hurt Marinette. Like, to Ladybug, she's flirting with her boyfriend, but that puts Cat Noir in kind of a bad position, and so I feel like that she would basically need to like very much distance herself from Cat Noir in that way. Like, she would basically have to kind of like zip it up, like hide all her feelings, even though she knows that now like Adrien and Cat Noir are the same person. And now when you think about it, like the love squares kind of reverts. Like obviously like Marinette still is in love with like both like Cat Noir and Adrien, but like think about it, Ladybug is now in love with Cat Noir, whereas Cat Noir would only be in love with Marinette because now he's in a relationship with Marinette instead of like the love square. Like some of the love square has been solved, but not all of it. And so I think that that's actually really interesting. And as I mentioned before, I've always had the theory that the reveal would only happen one way, and we would have an entire one-way season and then a final both-way season. So if not Nino, because I feel like that does make kind of less sense now with the timeline I made. Obviously, it could happen in the middle of the season and in episodes we know nothing about yet, but I think it would make a lot of sense for Adrien to reveal his identity to Marinette, to basically start their relationship differently from Kagami, and that would cause like a whole new drama. But what do you guys think? Let me know which perspective you agree with, or share your own by leaving a comment down below. Which one of my theories do you think is right? Is it the Adrien theory, the passive Cat Noir theory in relation to Nino, or my Adrien reveals to Marinette theory? Or do you think that they're all wrong? Are they all right? Could that be something that's possible? Remember to click subscribe if you haven't already to be notified whenever I post a Miraculous Ladybug video, and thanks again to the people that support us through YouTube memberships and Patreon, whose names will be credited and showcased now. Have a miraculous day, everybody. Bye!